Beautiful. Okay, score. Want to first ask if there's any specific questions that you have about the course before I go into yapping about it.
No, not off the bat. I came on to sort of learn more. My uh sort of colleague slash boss, basically I teach at a studio, and the owner of said studio who I work with and by extension work for, they've
Mhm.
done your course and highly recommend it. And hence why I wanted to do one of these things to see a bit more of what it's about. Because I am very interested. I have been for a while. But I've also just paid for and set myself up on another, like, I basically decided to re-qualify with a course because my original course was incredibly thin on the ground. Won't
Okay.
lie to you. So I've decided to re-qualify. Um, so yeah, I'm basically just deciding how much I can spend on training right now, and I wanted to see
Okay.
more about what this was about. And I was very excited when I saw that you were going to have lots of guest speakers this time as well.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I'm like a little bit nervous because I've never like done anything with me being the one like hosting it with other people. Like I've been like guest speakers for a lot of people's stuff in the past, but I'm like, "Oh, I'm like responsible for making sure that like everybody gets their stuff in." Which it's fine. It's going really well, but I'm like, "Oh, being on the other end is yeah, fascinating experience." But I'm gonna share my screen real quick and I'm just gonna show you the back end of the course. So, and then while we're staring at the screen, I'll just yap for a little bit. The why behind this course came from me having hundreds, if not thousands, of conversations with injured people that injured themselves pole dancing. And I guess I want to express that because it's a biased sample, right? Like I'm not talking to people that are not hurt. People are only hurt when they're coming to me. And from those conversations, I'm like, oh, there's very clearly some gaps in people's knowledge of how the body works and then what's being taught in a pole studio. And this gap,
Mhm.
to some degree, in my opinion, is resulting in the injury rates that we're seeing in people. Um, I at first started my like how to not fuck up your it was your body pole dancing, and I still have those courses where I was talking to students directly or like instructors directly where I'm like, this is how your shoulder works. And that was going well, but I was like, if I want to have a bigger impact on the pole world, I have to talk to people that are interacting with, 20, 30, 40 people a week. And the goal
Mhm.
with this course is let me teach more people about how the body works, how it responds to training, injuries that I'm seeing, ways that we can actively reduce the risk of them happening or happening, yeah, occurring. And then the goal is for that to just like spread through the pole world. So, that was my like why. And then when I was outlining all of the things, I'm like, what do people need to know in order to have that like end goal happen? And so I broke everything up into weeks. Like I like brain dumped and I was like, looks like it's gonna be 10 weeks based on the like topics that I came up with. We're gonna start with anatomy. And from my perspective, if you don't understand what each individual joint is doing, it's really hard to know like how do I assess this? How do I address limitations? How do I figure out if somebody has the capacity to do a trick if I don't know if their shoulder's in like flexion or extension?
Mhm.
Fully will say that in the previous versions of this course, the first like 3 weeks have not been the most like applicable from the material to like in the studio. So that's a do better for me. And I'm gonna trial run this round of like how can I take all of these anatomy videos on like the upper extremity and have our weekly Zoom meeting be more like interactive of like, okay, so we're gonna look at a trick and I want you to tell me like what is happening in the upper body and like
Mhm.
is it flexion, is it extension, is it rotation, like what are you seeing in these different tricks or positions? So we're able to kind of connect the dots between like book information and like applicable information. And same thing for the second week. That's like the lower body. Third week we get into the core and the spine. The addition for this round is I'm having a pelvic floor physical therapists come in and talk about pelvic
Oh, yeah, I
floor
saw that. That's really cool.
week, which I'm excited about. So there'll be another module or another video from me because she asked me to go over the anatomy of the pelvic floor, and she's going to come in and fill in like dysfunction, ways that you can modify if people are telling you that they're experiencing like incontinence or some stress, something while they're doing things. And so
I feel like that'll be so helpful when, especially like for any student, but especially working with students who are like postpartum or maybe perhaps postmenopausal as well, like older students as well. Yeah, I think that could be so, so helpful.
and it's also really interesting because the the highest it's been a while since I've actually looked at this data, so asterisk with this. At one point, of the percentage of people that were assigned female at birth that experienced incontinence, it was younger female athletes, like no babies
Really? Oh,
that were athletic and that started being athletic from like a really young age, have like pelvic floor dysfunction and will experience like incontinence is one of the most common things. So they'll like pee themselves a little bit with exertion. Um,
oh,
and it's not something that is like broadly talked about, right? Like if you're peeing your pants when you invert, like you're not going to tell somebody that you're
yeah.
leaking a little bit, right? So, um, if you don't know that and they don't know that it's like not supposed to be happening, then we're yeah, just going crazy. So I'm excited to see her name is Ellen. I'm excited to see what Ellen shares because she's planning on sharing like tips and tricks for you can like modify what people are doing in class with that information. Um
Yeah,
I
because otherwise I feel like what you're describing is kind of the blind leading the blind.
yeah.
We don't know that it might be happening and they don't want to admit that it is happening. And so, yeah, we're all in the
Yeah.
dark.
And so yeah, one of the things that I'm hoping that she touches on, and if not, it'll be something that I will touch on like ways that you can share that like this is a pretty common thing. It's not normal and shouldn't be normalized, but a common thing. And so if you're experiencing it, like just let me know when you like are doing your rounds, and then you'll have the knowledge of like, okay, you're peeing your pants with exertion. Here are the things that Ellen said we can modify, and so like let's try them without it being like I'm peeing my pants. Yeah, in front of everybody. Um,
Yeah.
Week 4 goes into like exercise science principles. There are things like how the body like generates force, different energy systems that are used based on like how hard or how long an exercise is, how much rest you should have versus like the exertion level of a trick. We also talk about structuring out your classes and then warm-ups and like cool downs in this week. So to me this week is more like back end stuff where you're like, oh, when I'm class planning, I can take this into consideration so that I'm not overloading my students or underloading them because most people want to progress in their pole journey, and there's ways to make that more efficient, and there's ways to make that less efficient. And I feel like where a lot of people get frustrated is they're not training in an efficient manner, and so they just train more and more and more, and then they're like, why is my shoulder fucked? And I'm like, well, we could have tried like differently and still got to the end result. Week 5, we go into assessing your students' capacity for movement, and I have a guest speaker coming in for this week as well. Her name's Judy Gray. She's going to talk about how you can use your warm up and your like class prep time to figure out if people are ready to do the thing that you plan on teaching, and then if not, then you're going to need to modify on the fly type of stuff. For right now, a lot of it is different assessments that you can do for the different body parts, and there's a bunch of videos that are in this one, like 3 pages for that week. So, super fun things for that. Week 6 is going into addressing common limitations. These are things that I see in people because I've assessed like hundreds of different bodies. So, common limitations that are going to impact your students' ability to do things. And then there's exercises that you can put in your warm-ups or give them. So, it's kind of like an exercise library for week 6. Week 7, we go into designing a class, and this is kind of tying a few of the other like previous weeks together. So knowing that you want to do, I don't know, let's say an Aisha, like what's happening in the shoulder, what's happening in the hips, what assessments do I want to do? How do I want to program this into my class? If somebody can't do it and they're in the class for like whatever reason. Hopefully it's within their like relative skill set. They're not just like popping into like an Aisha class randomly, like having never touched a pole. But if somebody's struggling with like the hip flexion part of it or the push or the pull, you can be like, here's some exercise that you can do on your own. Week 8 is one of my favorite weeks because we're talking about different bodies. I'm gonna add in pregnant and postpartum to this week. We're working on putting the final touches on those recordings currently. And then I have Raza Diva coming in to talk about plus size pole dancers. That was a thing where I'm like, I'm not plus size. I can give you the best information that I have with the body that I exist in. But being as we have a specialist that loves talking about this, going to bring her in. And then I have a physical therapist. Her name's Melissa Kale. She only works with hypermobile people, like doesn't see anybody that isn't hypermobile. And so she's going to come in and talk about a wide variety of different hypermobile things, like the list of stuff that we're going back and forth between, where she's like, "How do I fit this in an hour?" And I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna have to like maybe cut some of the stuff out." But I'm excited to hear from her too, because a lot of people are hypermobile in the pole world.
I have
Um,
so many mobile students.
yeah,
I have students who I teach at the studio, and I have two students who I teach privately here actually, and they are both hypermobile. In fact, weirder still, they're both hypermobile and both have a history with like eating disorders as well. That I mean, you'll be well aware of this, but there are some things that are so common in the pole industry, unfortunately, and we're not taught about. We're
not
not.
yeah. And neurodivergence and hypermobile people are there's like a big overlap between that too. And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
I am neurodivergent, so whenever I get neurodivergent students, I'm like, don't worry, I get it. I'm also dyspraxic, so if you think you're just you think you're uncoordinated, I'm your instructor and I'm uncoordinated. You're fine.
got you. Yeah, I definitely have unmedicated ADHD, and so I call them squirrel moments. Like, well, you'll see them in the Zoom meetings when we're live. I'll be like, squirrel, and like, come back, brain, like on track. Sorry, I didn't talk about week 9. Week 9 is I'm biased, like one of my favorite weeks because we're going to be talking about injuries and like ways that we can help reduce them. I think it's really important for anybody that's coaching a specific movement to know what injuries are common in that form of movement. And then once again, like what can we do to not fuck up our bodies doing this? And like being as instructors are the leaders, like some of that responsibility gets put on you to varying degrees. And so talk about your role in ways that we can help people not hurt themselves. And then we wrap up with talking about the science behind recovery. And so there's a lot about training. Obviously, the yin and yang with training is for as hard as you train, you have to recover just as hard, if not harder. And a lot of people don't one understand that, and then two don't really understand like what does it actually mean to recover from training. And so yeah, we talk about different ways to make sure that you yourself are recovering, and then you can share that information with your students as well. And then finally, I don't know if this will show up. If
To
I
be fair, I actually know what this looks. Yeah, I know what they look like because there's one on the
Okay.
wall of our studio for our owner. Yeah,
Oh, score. Okay. Well, I
yeah.
was really excited because the one that comes with the course platform is really ugly. And so I'm like, create a own. And it took me for freaking ever to figure out like which design. I spent way too much time being like, which border do I like? And it's so simple. I was like, really, brain, 3 hours later, this is the one that you decided,
No,
but
I would have done exactly the same. I would
whatever. Um, and so yeah,
I do the same at work, for
you'll,
sure.
yes, I love it. So yeah, you'll technically get two certificates when you complete the things. One is the ugly one that comes from Kajabi, which is a course platform, and then the cute one that I created. Um, so how the course works, ideally you are watching all of the videos before we meet on Thursday. And I'm offering two different meeting times, which was feedback that I got from the previous round. So there'll be a morning one for me and then an afternoon one. And obviously people live in different time zones. So it's at 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah,
Ideally,
because this is your 2 p.m. right now, isn't
yep.
it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why I did for the sneak peeks. I was like, pick these are going to be the times that they're offered. And so like if they're not going to work for you, I'd rather figure that out now.
Mhm.
Everything's recorded, and so you'll be able to watch it if you can't make it live. No stress. But ideally, you watched all of the videos. there's the slides. You can take notes, watch them as many times as you want to watch them, and then during the Zoom meeting, it will be a refresh and then how to take that information and apply it to your classes. And sometimes it'll just be like you have to yap to your students, and sometimes it'll be like let's create like a warm up based on what you're planning on teaching the next time that you have a class. Um, the Zoom meetings are an hour, um, once a week. You can go to both if you want to go to both. And then there's also a community group where you can connect with other people if you want to ask questions, with your name attached to things. And then I also have a way for people to ask questions anonymously because I know like not everybody likes having their name associated with stuff when they're like, I feel dumb about this. I'm like, it's fine, but okay. And then yeah, if you submit questions ahead of time, I will make sure to research it and put it into the slideshow for that week. Or I'll say like I need more time and then I'll plop it into an email or the community group so people can learn from it.
And
Um,
so does that mean that because I know there are two different tracks that you can pick. There's the like accelerator track or the sort of what do you call the other track? The one where you do the
the
one-to-one?
the advisor track.
That's it, yeah. So does that mean that on either track you have the opportunity to submit questions and get those answered and things like that? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so the advisor track is the like smaller cohort, and we meet, well, you can go to, I would encourage people to go to both. And so that can be a little bit of a detriment if people don't have 2 hours every Thursday to go
Mhm.
to Zoom meetings. Because the big one's going to be a review of the like course material, and then the smaller group is like, what do you, small group of people, want to learn about? Like from that week, what would be the most beneficial for you, or if it's not something related to the content of the week, because we definitely have had some conversations where like one of the cohorts, it was a lot of studio owners and they wanted to talk about like ways to promote their studio online because I like post on Instagram all the time, and so they're like, we love this, but also like can we tap into like more of your business and like
Mhm.
social media brain? And I'm like, if everybody's cool with that, then like yeah, let's go over like how to use Canva and like a posting strategy and like ways that you can promote your business. And then the last round, I think there was only one person out of the group that was actively teaching. The rest of them were just prospective instructors. And so we talked a lot about like how if I could go back in time and start my pole journey or like instructor journey from scratch, what would I want to do differently? And like how can we kind of set you up from the beginning on like a better foot? Um, and so yeah, basically that the second meeting is what's going to be the most beneficial for the people in there. Um,
So is that outside of the 10 a.m., 2 p.m. ones? It's at a different time for those on the advisor track.
yeah, but it's right after. And so it'd be 11 and 3.
Got you.
Yep.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So far, I'll be honest with you, there's nobody that signed up for the advisor track for this round. And so gonna do like a last little push to see if anybody wants to join that one because I think it's really cool. I think it's fun to connect with people in a smaller group and be able to go over like specific scenarios that you're struggling with in class or um I don't know, a lot of times like hypothetical things or just like kind of off the wall random topics. Like one time we went over how to fit shoes. And I was like, oh, I never would have thought this was something that like people didn't know how to do. But like, I guess if you don't know, you don't know. So like, yeah, how do we figure out how like a pole sandal should fit a foot? And there's not really many styles to it. So like, if that doesn't fit, what are the modifications that we can do to try to make it be better for yeah, yourself or your students?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I hear the advice passed around a lot of sizing up, and I get why people say it, but then I see girls, I see students walking around the studio with like a good 2, 3 centimeters past their heel, and I'm like, that doesn't seem like a good idea to me. I don't like it. I'm not about like especially because I'm not our heels instructor. My specialty is not heels. My specialty is teaching beginners. But I look at it and I'm like, I'm not gonna say anything, but you wouldn't catch me wearing a shoe that big.
No, yeah, and that's yeah, the I didn't realize it was like as prevalent as a thing until I started paying like a little bit more attention with people like their videos online. And then I've gone to a handful of heels intensives and people are struggling. And I'm like, girl, your shoes are like 2 sizes too big, like minimum. Like this would not be this hard if your foot actually.
Yeah, for something like a heel, I've always seen it as something that, I mean, obviously within reason, but I've always seen it as something like you get a size that it fits reasonably tight and you wear it in because then as you wear it in, it molds around your foot so well and that gives you really good control. Like that's what I've always done. But that said, I tend to lean towards boots over sandals for that reason as well. Like I like having the more protection of your foot and being
Yeah.
able to really like lace it up to your size. I find that a lot more comfortable than sandals. Which is annoying because stilettos have their value in terms of a certain aesthetic and certain
Yeah,
tricks.
for sure.
But yeah, I definitely have inherently always leaned towards boots for that reason because they are more comfortable.
They definitely are. I'm in the process of breaking in a new pair of sandals and I'm like, my boots are right there. Like I could just put my boots on and
Yeah.
this would not be painful. So, um, yeah, the plan for the advisor track, if people sign up for it this round, is to go into to deep dive and then with both tracks, like if there's questions or like kind of like left field outside of the contained things that I have pre-filmed, I'm more than happy to like research and make an additional like module or have it be like a topic for a Zoom meeting if people let me know because I don't
Mm,
know what you don't know and I don't know what you want to learn. So
yeah.
whatever people want to learn, that I can adequately share information because I'm not trying to be out here just making things up with what I'm sharing. So more than happy to expand it as people want things to be
Yeah.
expanded, which was like the pelvic floor thing. Like I never considered it to be honest, which I don't know why. I was just like, oh yeah, like obvi pelvic floor exists, like just like any other muscle group. And then people are like, oh no, but like what about all of the other things? And I'm like, good point. Like let me bring somebody on that like knows more than me so that we can make this be good for
Yeah,
everyone.
I mean the human body's infinitely complicated, and then we bring pole into it, and we do stupid, weird things with the weird human body. I think it makes sense that there's almost an infinite number of topics to cover under that
Yes.
because you're putting very bizarre, unconventional demands on a human body, which is already a complex thing. I so often say to my beginner students when they're struggling with something they've just seen me do that looks I've made it look so easy, and that's what they'll always say is you make it look effortless, and I'm like yes, because I'm paid to and I've been doing it for 8 years. Please do not base your ability on mine. You are trying to do something very unnatural for the first time. It's going to feel weird, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I almost find myself deliberately like slowing down, simplifying my movements because I'm like, okay, if I keep doing this my way, you guys think that you need to do it that well, and it's like, no, just get the basics down, and then we'll add on.
Yeah.
But so I was wondering, what do people have access to the content after the course finishes?
Yes. And so you will have access to the everything that's like pre-recorded forever.
Okay, cool.
And then
Um,
I'm working on for like if people want to join for like the live calls in the future for there to be just like a low ticket for like the next round where you're just gonna pay for the additional live component. So if I
oh,
bring on
cool.
guest speakers for the next round where you're like, oh man, I really wish like I could learn from them, that's an option.
Oh, nice. So what, you'd be able to just like pay to go in for that week or something?
It'll probably be for the whole course because the plan will be to have like a group of new people come on every single time moving forward.
So
If
it's almost like an alumni sign up.
yes, exactly. And I'm still like finagling with like how do I get people access to some stuff and not other stuff. I'm not like the most techie person, and so I'm like, we're gonna figure this out eventually.
And like, because I get the impression both from how you've spoken about the course and also speaking to my studio owner who's done the course that things being like evidence-based and research-based is a big priority for you. Would that be right?
Yes.
And also, I follow your stuff on Instagram to be fair, and I share a lot of your stuff. If I showed you my Instagram account, you'd probably recognize it because I share your stuff constantly. So I was curious how you like keep the research as up to date as you can, especially with like I feel like studies in pole specifically are very limited. So like, do you find you branch out into other sports like gymnastics and aerial and other things? Are you able to keep it really pole specific? Like, what's your approach in that way?
Yeah, great question. So there's actually a lot of circus research, which sometimes includes pole,
Mm.
sometimes not. But it's actually wild how much circus research is being done. So I tend to pull from that first, and then if not, we're going into like gymnastics or other styles of dance, and then like pole is a unique way of moving, but the human body is the human body, and so a lot of the stuff is just like broadly accepted in across like all forms of movement that like this is how the human body responds to things. And so we're
Yeah.
going to take that and apply it to pole with like a little bit of a twist because I'm like, ah, I'm pulling from like baseball throwers technically, which is not the same as like pole,
Yeah.
obviously, but like the shoulder's a shoulder and
Yeah.
like whipping things through like a phoenix spin is like kind of a throw
Mm.
esque movement. And so there's some, at least in my brain, I can draw some like parallels to.
Yeah, you got to think about it creatively and kind of t draw movement patterns together rather than just looking at the same setting, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think
Uh,
is really fun because like to me it's like a giant puzzle where I'm like, how can I connect all of the things that I learned in my like chiropractic education and my master's degrees in sports medicine? And we didn't obviously talk about pole dancers or like dancers in general, but we talked a lot about like the hip, the knee, the shoulder, like a lot of like athletic-y things. And I'm like, it's there, but we're just like here instead. And so
Yeah,
kind
my
of,
university actually has a dance science like MSc, and it's something that in hindsight, or no, BSc, they have a BSc and an MSc, and now I look back and I'm like, God, I wish I'd just done dance science. That would have been amazing. Because it's literally that. It is sport. It's like a sports degree centered entirely around dance, and I'm like, that would have been perfect. And my university has a big like aerial department as well, so which is obviously not very common.
yeah.
Um, and then like do you each time you run the course, like do you find you bring new sources in or does it stay mostly the same? Like do things change very much?
I haven't had that much change from like the last cohort to this cohort, but I'm forever like looking and like being like what research are people doing? What new things are coming? And then if there's new things where I'm like, "Oop, this is like drastically different than what I have been sharing in the past," then I will update it. I haven't had that experience yet. Like everything's kind of been along the same vein, but
Mhm.
we're forever learning and
Yeah.
I'm forever being like study poll more people.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that I always think about instructors who still do static stretching and only static stretching as a warm up, and I'm reminded that things change and people sometimes don't bother to learn, and it's scary.
yeah.
Like I even think about my own warm ups, like in phys ed as a kid, and I'm like, how is that? Are we gonna get kicked out, or is that timer arbitrary? Because my timer's like
Oh,
on my end, it's timed out, but I don't know if that matters.
I don't think so. I have the
Oh,
like
okay, cool.
okay. If
Cool.
it ends suddenly, sorry.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, it's giving me like a 0 minute timer, but maybe it's fine because it's on your end. I don't know. Um, but yeah. Was there something else? Something else I was thinking about? Oh yeah, do you know how many people you've got on the cohort right now for this one?
The last time I looked, there were 36 people
Oh, cool.
signed up. So yeah, a pretty solid chunk of people. I'll be really intrigued to see if we split between like the morning and afternoon for me, Zoom meetings, or if people only pick one, which will be
Do you know like sort of like where people are coming from internationally, or do you
I
not get that
not
information?
yet. No, yep, that'll be information that I will collect as the course starts. I'll be like, "Where are you from? What do you do?" Like
Yeah.
that's the other part. The other fun part of pole, a little bit of sarcasm there, is like intro pole compared to like advanced spin pole are like very, very different ways of moving. And like we all are
Mm.
lumped under the umbrella of pole. So I like to tell, yeah, learn like what things are you asking your students' bodies to do? And like how can I help support how you teach?
Yeah. Yeah, because as I say, almost exclusively what I do right now is beginners. Because technically my qualification is in beginners instruction. I'm the course that I've now put myself onto is for all levels, which is part of the reason I decided to do it because I personally don't, I've never liked the fact that the courses available to me have always been like, okay, do beginner, then do intermediate, then do advanced. And it's like, it's just three versions of the same thing. We're going to teach you a bunch of moves, and then we're going to teach you how you spot them, and then we're going to teach you how to teach them. And I'm like, surely it would be more efficient to teach someone how to teach in depth and then have them apply that to the moves. Surely that is way more efficient than going through every single move individually and being really prescriptive about what moves count as what level, especially when pole is so fluid and like people pick stuff up from everywhere. Like I teach loads of moves that were not on my course. It doesn't mean they're not beginner moves. It's just that
Yeah.
my course couldn't possibly cover every beginner move ever. Um, and yes, that's why I've decided to requalify because I don't feel like I can really stand on the course that I originally did. I think my 8 years of experience has a lot more to do with what makes me a good instructor than the very short online course that I did just for insurance
Yeah.
purposes. But yeah, I'm in the UK.
Okay.
So for me, like the either times works fine because like 2 p.m. no 10 a.m. your side is 6 p.m. here, and then the 2 p.m. is 10 p.m. here.
Yeah.
And I'm a night owl. So either is okay. So yeah. So is
It
there
sounds like you will like the way that I teach because I for this course, for a lot of my things, like I don't think it's that the most efficient way for people to learn and like apply information for me to be like super dictatory, to be like, this is how you do it, like point blank period. Because like I'm not you, you're not me, our bodies are different, the way that we would approach things would be different. So it is a lot of like concept base of
mm,
like, here are the things, and I'm gonna need you to like filter through what works for you and apply it to your classes and how you teach. Which works well for some people's brains. Other people are more like, tell me what to do. And I'm like, you're not gonna like my course. Like, I'm sorry.
yeah.
I can't
But
like more direct stuff if you ask, but like you're gonna have to ask so that I know like exactly what you're looking for, as opposed to me being like, everybody's teaching exactly like this.
yeah. It reminds to me it feels a little bit, and this is the same thing I've experienced with like the like instructor courses, is it feels like it's the difference between when you're well, I was going to say when you're in like primary and secondary school, I suppose the equivalent for you would be like in grade school,
Mhm.
uh, versus like when you go off to college, university. And it's like when you go there, it's like we're going to introduce you to all of these concepts and you're going to make your own conclusions and do your own things with
Mhm.
them. And I
Yeah,
feel like it's a much more in-depth way of learning, but for some people that is very overwhelming. Some people, I mean, there's a reason why not everyone goes on to do a degree.
for sure.
Um, although these days everyone does seem to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not everyone does a PhD. Not
Yeah.
everyone does a master's. And yeah, and I much prefer that because I feel like I have enough confidence in myself to say that like I am capable of judging what my students need and what my teaching style is and what I want to give my students. And I don't think like sticking strictly to a prescriptive teaching model. Like, because my one was literally you will demonstrate the move, then you will explain what the upper body does, then you will demonstrate again, then you will explain what the lower body does with a second or third demonstration, and then you will tell them specifically two muscle groups that work in the move. And I'm just there thinking like, well, some moves involve one and some moves involve like five, so that seems arbitrary. Um, and yeah, and it was just like super prescriptive. The number of times you needed to repeat it, what you needed to say, and I'm like, this is not how a human being speaks. This
No.
is not no. Like the day I knew that that had gone out the window and I was more committed to my teaching style was when Fanny Basher became something I would say in class because like I would like there are literally some moves where I just go, by the way, guys, this is a Fanny Basher, be careful.
I love this. One of my favorite things is to say, like, act like somebody's picking you up from your butthole. And I'm like, that is a cue. That is a cue that would never be taught in like a formal, well, in my course, I guess it is. But yeah, one of the other ones that I've been to, it would never.
Yeah. Like
Um,
the cue I learned for pirouettes was sniff the pit. Um, and I think that was probably fairly well known or well accepted, but it still makes me laugh. Like, yeah. Um, yeah. But also I think like there's not like as long as you're being safe and you're giving clear directions, obviously that goes without saying, like we both know how important that is. Like I don't think there's that much value in being so prescriptive and so like rigid with students when you're dealing with adults in a class. Like one, they're adults, they know how to keep themselves safe, they're not five.
mhm.
And two, it's like you want to have a relationship with them, you want them to be able to laugh and you want them to be able to like relax, because if they're not relaxed and they're really tight and stiff and nervous, well then they're going to hurt themselves because
Yeah.
they're panicking, and that's way more dangerous than if I don't do a like fourth demonstration for the sake of it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Is like making people feel at ease. um but yeah.
Yeah. It was you kind of already touched on the last point that I wanted to make sure to highlight is other instructor courses from my knowledge, and I've only done one other formal ones, but I've like creeped on all of the like web pages of them, tend to be more focused on like this is how you do a trick, here's how you like spot it, here's how you describe it. That's not mine at all. Mine
Mhm.
is more the I want to call it like the back end information where I'm like, these are things that if you're going to teach somebody movement, I think you should know. And then you can
Yeah.
apply the other stuff that you learned where it's like, this is how I spot, this is like cues for specific things or different techniques of how you want to run your class, but like you understand how the shoulder works and like RPE and like that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Score.
Yeah.
Any other questions, my dear, before I let you go enjoy your lovely evening?
No, I don't think so. That's been really helpful. Thank you.
Yay, score. Enrollment is open through Sunday, and then we'll start on Monday with a kickoff call that'll be pretty similar to this, to be honest, just go over like back
Hmm.
end, get to know people a little bit, see if there's any specific things that like I need to start creating modules for ahead of time, and then we'll go from there.
All right, cool. Well, thanks so much for your time, Emily.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.